Leaving home for university made me think I had it all. After all, I am from a Christian family. I heard of stories being told in my community of girls who left for university and came back within the first semester pregnant or completely changed, messed up to be specific. I thought those were just stories to keep us rooted and avoid association with the wrong people. Well, it wasn't until I finally got to university and experienced life and freedom for the very first time. Back home, I thought I was free, but the truth is, I was just well guided because I had my parents guiding me at home, my teachers guiding me at school, and my pastors guiding me at church. Here I was on my own. Not even my friends gave me this sense of freedom. For the first time, I had myself to myself, own decisions to make, and a new life to live. Here, nothing was the same. I had no one to look up to and no one to guide me, so I thought I had an opportunity to be whoever I wanted to be, and everyone would just accept me for who I presented myself as, instead of whom I was expected to be as it was back home. I had a lot of choices to choose from and a lot of decisions to make before reality caught up with me and reminded me that I was who I went there as, not whom I was thinking of becoming. Don't get me wrong, there is nothing wrong with change, but the reason behind change determines a lot concerning it. My change wasn't to improve, but to blind in. That's not the change I would want for myself or anyone. That is why I looked back to determine my next step with a sober mind without any influence. I changed the way I saw the whole thing when I couldn't decide. I took it as a test of faith and character. I realized that I could blind in and fool myself and become a completely different person and lose myself. Or I could just be my real self and sell myself for who I knew myself to be, instead of going through the trouble of becoming someone completely new. I took my time and studied everyone around me. I learned that many people were not themselves. I could see this by how they conducted themselves. They were like people learning to be themselves and adapting to new environment. Everyone led a life hard to explain. It was like watching a Tyler Perry movie and finding out that in a cast of 10 people, he played 5 of the characters and directed the movie at the same time. It was amazing, yet hard to believe. I reflected on myself and thought hard about everything. I thought of my dreams and the promises I made to my parents when I left home. It felt like a movie, but reality was slowly kicking in, so I decided to be myself. It wasn't easy for many reasons, one of them being the fact that even those around me were like bad actors and actresses trying to figure out which role suits them best. I was amazed when I saw my roommate for the first time. She was a lousy and free-spirited girl when we were in class, and a sweet, calm angel when she was at the residence. It was like living with Medea and Tyler Perry as your friends. Medea was only active during the day in class, then Tyler Perry took over the night shift back at the residence. She would always talk about how well-mannered she used to be until she was influenced by the people around her. She would say how I would change within a month and be like her, if not worse than she was. That scared me. Simply because everyone was doing it made me think, what could stop me from joining the club? Every Friday they went out and sometimes only came back the following day or even after the weekend. It seemed so wrong to me. But then I realized that I was there to deal with myself and nobody else. I kept on praying that I would not be corrupted by others, but win them over instead. I went on trying to understand the double-minded strangers and kept my faith intact. I had a big break when I had an opportunity to present myself for whom I was during the orientation day. I was given a microphone to answer a question, and I decided to introduce myself before doing so. While everyone was trying to fit in, I decided to differ. I spoke in my home language, Isiswati. I gave away my name and that I believe in God above all. I gained a reputation immediately, not because I said anything that they didn't know, but simply because I was bold enough to be myself when everyone was trying to fit in a life no one introduced anybody into. From that day, people associated themselves with me, and I got an opportunity that I have been longing for to call everyone into reality and find out who they were behind their masks. Before long, I was made a class representative for internal auditing students. I used that opportunity to engage with most students and talk about life, their dreams, and homes. I was amazed to find that many of those people were just like me, only covered in shells of identity crisis. They could not be themselves simply because they feared being different from the rest. As soon as I laid my foundation, I became myself more and more. I grew up and learned to reject labels and grades that separated people who should be treated equally. I broke the gap between looking like and being. I always had different views about how people sold themselves as whom they wish to be instead of who they really are. I believe this has caused many breakups in people's relationships. Selling yourself for whom you want your partner to think you are, instead of who you are. For instance, a man who likes home-cooked meals meets a date at a restaurant instead of home just to look cooler and acceptable. Or a girl who had to borrow money for hair, nails, and makeup to impress a man she hardly knows. The question is, if he can't accept you for who you are now, what makes you think he will want to keep you when you finally run out of funds to make you look all beautiful and decide to be yourself? So I chose to look simple, wearing my normal clothes, never went an extra mile to impress an individual. If they didn't like me for who I was, I just left them. Maybe they were never meant to be part of my life in the first place. I believe in local business brands instead of all those expansive clothes. I would rather wear a no-name brand than spending money I didn't have in clothes or anything I can live without. I joined an all-girls movement, aiming to empower and build a woman and make them fit for the modern society without decreasing the value of their dignity and selling themselves short. I consider myself a victor today because I didn't allow peer pressure to get over me. I stood my ground, and before long I had people joining me. I became myself, and, in the process, I inspired others to be themselves. I don't think I would stand firm today and say I am woman of dignity if I lost myself. Today I say to you, as I could back then, so can you now. Many had people to support them financially. Some of those things were paid with their virginity, hence giving away their dignity, which is hard to redeem, if redeemable at all. I guess being foolish and uncool kept me safe from those predators as a reason I boldly say, I am a woman with dignity.